So yesterday evening, Phillip Schofield, via the Mail, revealed that he did indeed have an affair with a young runner who was out working on the This Morning show. And he also had said, he admitted that he had lied. He had lied to friends, he lied to family, he had lied to his colleagues. He had even misled his lawyers. And this was a big story, breaking news, came out about 6:30 in the evening. And then, Twitter, it was all, would have been one of the main trending topics, would have been Phillip Schofield. And then you had Dan Wootton. Yeah, Dan Wootton, is the showbiz columnist, presenter on GBUs. Dan Wootton, you see this tweet here. Dan Wootton tweeted, "Woke ITV CEO Caroline McCall happily gets rid of Piers Morgan, Jeremy Clarkson, Carl McGiffin and Jeremy Kyle, but allowed her senior executives to cover up for Phillip Schofield for 4 years. They almost stepped them down. It almost stepped down now. This was the reason I left ITV in November 2019. And when I saw this tweet, initially I thought, at first I took Dan in his word, and I thought, well, maybe he was the one. There was all these rumours swirling around that someone had filed a complaint. People were throwing Ruth Langsford, Eamon Holmes' wife, out there, fellow TV presenter. I was never entirely sure about that. But when Dan tweeted this, I thought, I took him at his word and said, okay, fair enough. Maybe he's telling the truth. But when you do some digging, though, on the internet, you'll come across this. And this is a tweet from Dan Wootton when he was working in talk radio, and this was a day after Phillip Schofield came out on This Morning. And he was on the sofa with Holly, and Ruth and Eamon Holmes were there as well. And he tweeted, "Phillip Schofield and I have publicly had our issues in the past. However, I only salute him for his brave decision to come out. That conversation, one of the most difficult a closeted man or woman can ever have, with Holly Willoughby this morning will change lives." So he's now gone from saying that in November 2019, he approached ITV management with a story that there'd been something going on, an affair there, something inappropriate going on there with Phil and the young kid that was working for a runner in the show. And he put in the tweet, the runner was deeply unhappy. He was not a happy bunny about this. But then 3 months later, though, Dan Wootton goes out of his way to praise Phillip Schofield for coming out on This Morning. So, at this point, when you see this, you think to yourself, well, Dan must be lying, or, he's just simply jumping on the bandwagon of the whole thing of everyone praising Schofield for coming out as gay, or he's one of the people in the media complicit with this when it comes to getting the narrative out there that they want. And yeah, this is a guy, Dan Wootton. He was the guy that broke the whole Megxit story about Harry and Meghan leaving the royal family. So this guy really is in the know. I think he's a foreign in Prince Harry's ass. He calls him a sad little man. They had all the stuff there with Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp took him to court over the whole thing, saying that Depp's a wife beater. So this guy really is quite a high up, powerful guy in this showbiz, and that showbiz, media world. But I initially gave Dan the benefit of the doubt. He comes. I don't know if you say he's necessarily the front man on GBUs, but I thought when I hear Dan Wootton talk, he seemed to know his stuff about Scottish politics. He seemed to know that Sturgeon was a wrong'un. He seemed to be quite outspoken when it came to how the woke mob operate, the cancel culture. And I thought, fair enough, he seems alright. But when you think of how these showbiz people operate and all the seediness, all the sketchy shit, when there's stuff about doing with phone hacking, phone hacking, and by the way, I'm not accusing Dan Wootton of phone hacking, but it has gone on. It has gone on in that line of work that he's put in, and it's either that you're a liar, or you just have no morals at all. But then if you have a liar, if you are a liar, then more than likely you have no morals. And if somebody has no morals, chances are you're a liar. So, there you go. But then, see this here, Dan Wootton, a day after Phillip Schofield came out, he had a big column about this on The Sun. Article he had, and Phillip made the bravest decision of his life by coming out after 57 years. And he tweeted, "Living in the closet creates deep psychological issues for any gay man, including feeling overwhelmed by intense anger and shame. Coming out is one of the hardest conversations a person will ever have, let alone when it's on national TV. I salute Phil." And so Dan Wootton's defense might be on this, that he didn't know the backstory. He didn't know how bad it was. He might just say that I'd heard that he had an affair with a guy that was quite young, Philip did, and then Philip essentially kicked him to the curb. Wanted nothing more to do with him. And so he'll try and say that he didn't know how bad and how inappropriate it was. But in the end, though, he's now all of a sudden they're coming out saying this is the reason why he left ITV November 2019. And all of a sudden, just not even 3 months later, about 3 months later, he's now praising Phil for what he's doing. It's like, you could have just left that alone. If you felt so strongly about it that you went to ITV with a story about it, and then they refused to investigate it, and then you decided that's enough, I don't want anything more to do with this channel, I quit. But then you go out of your way to praise Phil for coming out publicly. So it just doesn't add up, does it? And then Phillip Schofield actually responded, "Thank you so much, Dan, and I've read the book already, LOL." And then Dan Wootton goes, "It changed my life." And it's like, wow, And Dan might try and claim that he was just being sarcastic with that tweet, but it really sounds like he really does come off sound like such a sycophant and a phony. And that's a shame, because he was somebody that I gave the benefit of the doubt. I wanted to believe. A tweet here. ITV, we were deeply disappointed by the omissions of the seat made tonight by Phillip Schofield. Philip made assurances to us which he now acknowledges were untrue, and we feel badly let down. They were all told multiple times. Well, I'm sure I imagine there probably was a few people who complained. But again, I don't know if you were one of them, Dan. You say that you this was the reason why you left. You left because they refused to investigate it. But that's not true, Dan. It was what it was for you. You see this Insta post here. You quit, just like you quit for the same reason that Piers Morgan quit, because the bosses pressured you into stop criticizing Harry and Meghan. So which one is it? Is it is it because of Phillip Schofield, or is it because of Harry and Meghan? What's the real reason? And he might try and wriggle his way out of it by saying, well, it was a combination of things. He might try and say that. He might say it was because of Harry and Meghan, and because it was the whole of the Phillip Schofield thing. And they might try and say that because they might get off the hook all these showbiz columnist people, they want to get a catchy headline, you know. So they all say, "This is why I did this. This is why I did that," and it might not be 100% truth, you know. They're going to overinflate things a little bit, but at the same time, though, it doesn't look good with this. I mean, obviously, I've talked about Schofield a lot and done a few videos on him, but it's quite disappointing here with this guy Dan Wootton, who Dan Wootton I thought was all right. I was beginning to believe that Dan Wootton was one of the good guys, but it just seems now that he really is a fake, and he's kind of maybe just jumped on this kind of like bandwagon of kind of like criticizing woke and criticizing cancel culture, and maybe with some of this stuff, when he says it, he believes it, but maybe a lot of it, it's just a lot of shtick really that he decides to run with. There's a tweet here actually that Dan Wootton retweeted. Adam Brooks. Phillip Schofield shamefully used the gay community to mask his awful behaviour at work, and played the old puppy eyes move in front of the nation to get sympathy, even getting himself labelled as brave. I'm pretty sure that community is rightfully angry tonight. And Dan Wootton retweeted this. Well, it's like, well, Dan, you should have been pretty pissed off, Dan, as a gay man. You're a gay guy yourself, Dan. You should have been pretty pissed off and felt kind of sick that ITV refused to investigate the story when you went to them. You said that was the reason why you left ITV. And then 3 months later, Phillip Schofield comes out as gay. But you make a decision a day later on your talk radio show, Dan's Dilemma, or whatever the hell it was called back then, to salute him for his brave decision. So it's like, what is it? It's like, you're a liar or you just have no morals. But you can be both. And there's other stuff with Eamon Holmes. Eamon Holmes had tweeted as well, and he said, Ruth and I deceived and lied to. One day I'll tell the story. We had no issue with him being gay, only support. What transpired took us for fools. The man told us complete lies, and we unfortunately believed them. So, again, I don't know. I don't know with Eamon Holmes. It seems pretty blatant to me with this Dan Wootton stuff, that Dan Wootton's, he's either lied by saying that he was the one that went to the ITV with the story, or, really he didn't have any morals or principles about this, and you know what I mean? And he made it a point to, praise Schofield, when he came out. You could have just said nothing, Dan. You could have said nothing. If you thought that this was pretty bad, and it was very inappropriate, then you should have just not said a word. But the timing of this was awful suspect, because I believe it was the day after he came out on the TV show This Morning. He then did a tell-all story with The Sun, and then that's the day that Dan praised him on talk radio. And the press, the media, they're all probably one big giant clique. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's their different little social circles and different factions and that. But Dan would have been on the know. Dan knew. He knew what was up. And it's been said before that when all of a sudden Phil, he's having a tell story with the Sun paper, that that they've got something on him. It's, you're gonna do this tell-all story with us, and it's gonna probably help us sell a lot of papers, and then order for all the story to come out, to prevent the story coming out about the affair with the young runner. So Dan Wootton, that's a disappointing one, because I wanted to believe he was all right. But there has been a few question marks there. A lot of people on Twitter have been I found this questionable, because they've gone back. You can always go back with old tweets that people have and see what they have said. And, and Dan Wootton wants to bring up, like, Jeremy Kyle as somebody they kicked to the curb. But they kicked him to the curb for good reason. There was somebody that was involved in that stupid, trash show that he did. And they ended up committing suicide. We know the whole story. Jeremy Kyle was let go for good reason. So I don't know why you'd be bringing his name up, and really don't. You shouldn't really be bringing Piers Morgan's name up. Like, good grief. But then, Dan Wootton, he said it when at the Holly Willoughby. He knew why she was preparing to pull the plug on their partnership. He knew what was up. He knew what happened. But I don't know if he was really the one that really went to ITV, though, and certainly wasn't the reason why he had left ITV. I mean, what is it, Dan? Was it Meghan and Harry, or was it the Phillip Schofield thing? And that's the thing with Dan Wootton. There's been certain things with Dan. It's like I remember a while back, because Dan really just, there's so many things he'll always be shitting on Harry and Meghan, and there can be good reasons for shitting on Harry and Meghan. Don't get me wrong, but I can remember one time he tweeted something. I think it was about Prince Harry around the time just before his book came out. And I also remember Nigel Farage as well tweeting something, being critical of Harry. And both of the tweets came out at almost the exact same minute. And both being quite critical of Harry. They weren't worded exactly the same, but it was just the timing of the tweets that made me think, well, that's quite weird. It's like these guys both, they both work on GBUs. Both of them imagine been around one another. I think Dan a few times has interviewed for Nigel Farage, so the timing of it to me was awful suspect. They both just at the very same minute tweeted something and being critical of Harry. And I've had my doubts about GBUs. I've done a whole video about that, 30-minute video, but I wanted to believe though he was all right and he was one of the good guys, but it seems like that isn't the case, sadly. And then there is stuff there to do with more stories coming out. People saying that this morning they might even pull the plug on this morning. ITV confirms that it did investigate rumours of Phillip Schofield's affair with a young male colleague in 2020, but they both denied it. Which I personally, if it's my theory would be maybe that they both denied it, and the reason why they both denied it is that Phil paid the guy off to keep quiet. I mean, I'm pretty certain that I'm pretty confident we won't hear anything from this kid he had the affair with. I'm almost like say with 80% degree certainty there will be no story. You'll not hear his story. He won't say anything on this publicly. But yeah, those are my thoughts, guys. So yeah, with Dan Wootton, that was one. He can't be trusted, sadly. He's been caught out, and a lot of them do get caught out. But these are just the things with these people in the showbiz scene, tabloid. Really, they're just snake. It's snake shit, And leopards never change. Leopards never change their spots. Yeah, but those are my thoughts, those guys. I'll be back with some more videos soon. Thanks a lot. See ya.